Now, joining us from San Diego in California is Henry Ensher. He's a former U.S. ambassador and Deputy Assistant Secretary of State. Henry, there seems to be a much more of a clarity of U.S. policy when it comes to Syria. The U.S. is no longer really backing the Kurdish-led Syrian Democratic Forces and putting its efforts into Ahmed al-Sharaa and the Syrian government. That surely is going to help bring at least one part of Syria together. But have you just abandoned the Kurds?
Look, it's absolutely clear, right, that the United States has chosen Sharaa as its instrument in Syria now, and has told the Kurds that an independent operation, an independent existence for the Kurds is no longer part of U.S. national security policy. So this gives Sharaa a unique opportunity to unify the country in a way that it has not been in at least 15 years.
Now, when it comes to Russia, Russia was a big backer for one very obvious reason, and that's because Russia wanted access to the Tartus port in Syria. Now, Sharaa is going to Russia for the second time. Is that alarming for the US?
You know, I don't know about alarming, but it really says something about the ruthless pragmatism of Sharaa, right? The Russians and the Iranians were just engaged in a campaign of just murder against the Syrian population. I'm sure that Sharaa lost people that he knew because of direct action by the Russians. So his willingness now to engage shows the kind of pragmatism that is necessary to succeed in that region. He should just make sure, and I'm sure that as a Syrian he will get a really good price for whatever the Russians still want in Syria, which I assume includes access to the Mediterranean. So pursuing an excellent price is, I'm sure, where Sharaa is at, and he's choosing here to swallow the emotional content for the sake of his regime, and I presume for the sake of his country. But wow, this displays pragmatism of a sort that you don't see very often.
You talk about the pragmatism. Do you think that pragmatism is going to be extended to the Israelis because the Israelis are occupying the Golan Heights? This is a very big problem for a man that used to be known as Abu Jalani. When al-Sharaa's name was the father of the Golan. So, where does that lead Sharaa when it comes to Israel? Do you think there's pragmatism there as well?
So, look, I think Sharaa has demonstrated that he's all about unifying the country under his leadership. And he definitely does not need or want a fight with Israel at this point. Look, under the previous regime, I was present in Damascus while we were negotiating the potential settlement between Syria and Israel, and really got down to the last 10 meters on the shore of Galilee, right? So there is a deal to be made, and there's real opportunity here. I suspect that arrangements will be made, and something like peace will exist between Syria and Israel, even if a formal declaration, a joining of the Abraham Accords, has to wait for a longer season of political calm. But working out a deal with Israel would be consistent with the rest of his approach. Certainly, Israel has not done as much harm to Syria as Russia did.
Now, do you think that the US then, I mean, you just talked about the US's role in getting down to those last 10 meters. Is the US now the kind of only honest broker between Syria and Israel? Because the US, it hasn't got a great record when it comes to those kind of negotiations when Israel's involved. It always backs Israel.
Well, I mean, that's certainly true. And this use of expression like honest broker or mediator, no, this is not strictly true, is it? Quite right. Historically, the US, in the end, has always backed Israel regardless of the outcome of the negotiations. Look, we were deeply disappointed that we didn't get that deal between Syria and Israel. In the end, though, we supported Israel's approach and endured another 30 years of chaos and uncertainty. I think this administration is more willing to put pressure on Israel to make sure that there's stability between the two countries. Certainly, the U.S. has no interest in further conflict between Israel and Syria. So I think a deal is in the offing, or at least an arrangement, somewhat short of formal peace. I don't expect to see an Israeli embassy in Damascus anytime soon, but in the meantime, something can be worked out.
Henry Ensher, thank you so much. Always great to get your thoughts.
Always a pleasure. Thanks.
Don't miss out. Get the full picture. Subscribe to Al Jazeera for reliable news, expert insight. Like, share, stay ahead.